The second part, look what it says in verse 7. After John is aghast seeing this prostitute that's drunk with blood, the angel said to me, "Why do you marvel?" Verse 7, "I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her." Religion has always been carried by Satan. Satan enslaves the world either with religion. How did we get the pyramids built? That was religion. How do we get all the incredible, their LiDAR, LiDAR that they use with drones to map jungles, they're finding right now across Central America, there weren't thousands of people building pyramids. There were millions of people building pyramids. The most recent LiDAR explanation that they found, there is super highways that are leading between all these developments where millions of people lived. How did they build those superhighways and pyramids? It was religion. And what we see is religion has harnessed some of the greatest building projects ever seen in the world. Yes, ma'am. Did you all hear that? What she said, what I would say she said is, Roman Catholicism is 98% Orthodox Christianity. 98. You can't even say that for some Christian churches. Roman Catholicism knows Bible doctrine like you wouldn't believe. If you study systematic theology, and that is a very good question, by the way. If you study systematic theology, a true study of systematic theology is not what you believe, but finding what you believe surrounded by what everybody else teaches in Christendom. So personally, when I teach theology, I use the person I use. I guess I say it on YouTube so I can say it out loud here. I use Wayne Grudem. Now, he is hyper-reformed. He's a 6-point Calvinist, okay? Not 5, 6. What I mean by that is he's really Calvinistic. But what he does in his systematic theology, I love. He puts down what he believes, then he sets next to it what the Roman Catholics believe. And they're historic. We have Roman Catholic theologians going all the way back 1700 years. Then he puts down what the Calvinists believe. He calls it the Reformed or Covenant view. Then he puts down what the Lutherans believe, because they shifted a little bit from Catholicism. Then he puts down what the Wesleyans believe. That's what you would call Arminianism. And that would be what, Charles and John Wesley believe. Then he puts down what the Baptists believe, almost like a subset. Then next to them, he puts what he calls the renewal. That's the charismatics. All forms of charismatics in one systematic theology. And then he concludes it with a verse and a devotional prayer and a hymn on every systematic theological doctrine. I've never seen anybody do that before. Why I say that is Roman Catholicism is so orthodox. What they've done is they've added this works thing. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you what they added. The sacraments. You all heard of the sacraments? How many of them are there? 7 sacraments. And what they start with is Satan's lie. And see, it's interesting, the 2% that's wrong is the start of Romanism. By the way, when I'm on an airplane, you know what I say to the person sitting next to me? I'm reading my Bible, and they go, "What do you do?" And I say, I teach ancient literature. And they go, "What's that?" I said, "I teach the primary documents of the Christian faith." Now they're really interested. They go, "What is that?" And I say, "I teach the Bible." Oh, you know what they say next? "I have a question." But then they'll back up and they'll say, "I'm a Roman Catholic." And I smile at them. I do this all the time. I say, "I'm Catholic, I'm just not a Roman Catholic." Now you've got them hook, line, and sinker. You teach the Bible, you're Catholic but not Roman Catholic. They have a million questions for me. I am Catholic. I believe that the Bible teaches that Jesus started his church built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets. I'm not Roman Catholic. As you'll see, if I ever stop diverging, that Romanism entered Christianity in the 4th century. That's when what Julius Caesar brought in the Roman temples was merged when Constantine legalized Christianity. The Roman church owned all the temples. The Christians were winning. There were more Christians than there were pagans. So Constantine said, if you can't beat them, what's the saying? Join them. And he did. He said, we'll pay all of you Christians that are leaders to lead your churches, and we'll keep all the pagan temples, and why don't you guys just work this out? And all of a sudden, the churches that read Scripture and prayed and were just like in normal churches today, maybe more like a brethren church, that it's real Bible-centered and not a lot of activities. That's what the early church was like. Merged with candles, beads, robes, headdresses, Pontifex Maximuses. That's what they call the Pope. Pontifex Maximus. That's his name. If you know anything about Roman Catholicism, he is the Pontifex Maximus. He's the chief bridge builder to God. And he is the vicar of the church, and he is all these things. Where are all those titles from? They come from Roman temples. That Julius Caesar, when he was starting the empire, he imported every ancient, a pagan religion and brought them to Rome and put temples up. They were all there. And Constantine said, you guys can have all that. And the popes originally were pastors in Rome, and they were good ones, very Orthodox. But Gregory the Great took upon himself to be the first Pontifex Maximus and said he would be the monarchical episcopate. O means one, arche means to rule, episcopate is ruler. He was the Pope, and that's Gregory, and he instituted all the stuff you see. So Roman Catholicism is two parts. Christianity from the Bible, that's the Holy Catholic faith it used to be called, plus Romanism, which is all this, what you see, the beast that's coming. So you ask, don't they know this? If they're born again, they do. And there are some born again ones that are Roman Catholics and Roman Catholic priests. I've even met Roman Catholic priests. I used to deliver Bibles in Poland to the largest Mary shrine in the world. It's in outside of Krakow, where the John Paul II lived. Do you know what that born-again Roman Catholic priest did? He risked going to prison and being beaten by the Polish authorities to receive from us 10 to 20,000 Gospel of Johns with a tract in it in every language of the world, because people came, even in communist times, to the Shrine of Mary and would crawl up there and bow down and do all that. And he was the priest that guarded it, and he stood next to each one of them that came all day long, crawling up to Mary and bowing down, and he'd keep following them. And he had in his robe a Gospel of John. In fact, he had several. He'd stand there and he says, do you feel like you've gotten closer to the Lord? And they'd be crying and everything, and they'd say, yeah. He says, well, have you ever read the Bible? And they'd go, no. And he'd hand them a Gospel of John and say, this is how I came to know Jesus personally. That's all he did. 10,000 a year. He knew the Lord, and he was in the system, and he was using it. Do I recommend that? No. What he should have done is said, it's all wrong, but that's how I am, and he is different. So what I'm saying is, some Roman Catholics know it's wrong. Most of them don't. Why? Because they're deceived. What does it say in Ephesians? The God of this world has blinded their minds, and they really think that they're earning their way to heaven through all the 7 sacraments, and they are so earnest. Have you ever seen a lifelong Italian Roman Catholic woman? She is so devout and so focused and so sweet and goes to Mass twice a day. She is trying her hardest, what? To do enough good to get to heaven. That's Satan's biggest lie. That's why Satan is called an angel of light. He works in the realm of religion. There are devout Taoists and Buddhists and Shintoists and Muslims and Mormons, devout. And they're knocking on every door. The Jehovah's Witnesses hoping to get to heaven. And the others are in the liberal Christian churches, and they're starting every soup kitchen hoping to get to heaven. And others are doing whatever. In Paul's day, they were giving their bodies to be burned. Thought they could help somehow. That's religion. That's Satan's thing. But to answer your question, how did it get into Roman Catholicism? Constantine brought it. Do you all know Constantine? Constantine's from upper northern England, York. He lived there. His father was the general, the Roman general of one of the most winning armies in the Roman Empire in the 4th century, the 300s. He was up in northern England fighting, and the Pope died. The Roman emperor died. And so the council in Rome called to northern England and asked Constantine's dad to become the next emperor. He was such a good general. he started making his way with his wife, Helena, to Rome to become the Roman emperor, and he dies. The council was aghast. What do we do? And everybody wanted to be the emperor. And they all started fighting. So Constantine's dad died, so Constantine the son tells everybody, the army loved him because father, son, he was part of the same army. He said, I'll go in my dad's place. And he brought his army down from England, across Europe, to Rome, and he met the other rivals. This is history, it's fascinating. At the Milvian Bridge, it's called. And Maxentius was on one side, Constantine was on the other. The night before, they were going to meet and fight it out, the legions. Constantine was in his tent, sleeping away on his cot, and he had a dream, and he saw a light in heaven, and a voice said to him, his dreams were in Latin, in hoc signe vince, 4 words in Latin. In this sign conquer. And he looked in his dream, and he saw a shield, a Roman shield, with a red line painted on it, and a red line painted that way, a cross. He woke up in the middle of the night, said, everybody get your shields out. And he put a red cross on every shield. They marched up the Milvian Bridge. The Roman legions coming against him, they fell off the bridge and they drowned in the river, and he won the battle. He became the emperor, and he got so excited. He felt that was a connection to Christianity. His mother, Helena, the widow, came with him, and she said, it is Christianity. She was a Christian, a Byzantine Christian. And he said, I will give what he called in Latin, religio licita, the legalization of religion. In other words, Christianity became legal. And so, I'm used to having, all the other Bible institutes, I have a screen right here I can point to, and it's over there. I'll point here. Here's Judaism. There's Jesus. Here is the one holy Catholic apostolic church that Jesus started, that immediately started branching off into Arminianism and Coptic and Eastern Orthodox and Greek and Russian. Then there were the radical reformers, the Hutterites, the Mennonites, the Brethren. Through the Lutheran come the Pietists, the Moravians, the Covenant of Free, the Baptist General Conference. Then we have the Reformation. And look, the Roman Catholic Church splits. Roman Catholicism in England becomes the Anglican Church. The Anglican Church of England is just the Roman Catholic Church in England, okay? Same thing. And then they become the Methodists, the Episcopalians. So the Anglicans in America are Episcopalians. The Methodists are Anglicans through the Wesleys. From them come the Assemblies of God, the Holiness Church. Through the Reformation, we got the Quakers, the Baptists, the Congregationalists, the Universalists, the Unitarians, the Presbyterians, and the Christian Reformed. It's all from the same thing, the same book, the Bible, and they all have varying degrees. In fact, you could put all of church history over the Bible. They're just kind of 5 stages of church history. The early church, now notice the square is the Bible, right there. So it's biblical. The early church was mostly biblical, but they had some problems. And Paul was always addressing them, John was addressing them, Peter was addressing them. But their first biggest problem was called baptismal regeneration. And people were Jewish, and they knew about circumcision, and circumcision was a sign of the covenant, so they thought baptism is like circumcision. So just like in the Old Testament, God wanted you to be circumcised to make you in the covenant, we want to baptize people to get them in. And so people started thinking, if I'm baptized, I'm going to heaven. I'm in. That was a very bad error of the early church. Then we go through all that persecution. Then we got to the Roman Catholic time. Now we're in the 4th century. Now look, it's changed a little bit. We've got a lot of Romanism is in the Bible, but we've got this whole overlay of works and beads and candles and outfits and popes and bishops and monks and all this stuff. But the worst part is the works religion. By the way, you notice in my Bible here, it's God's Word, the Bible, and you'll find all the Arminian Wesleyan verses are in there, and you'll find all the Augustinian Calvinistic verses are in there. And the Bible is much like a deck of cards, that you can deal it into piles. And that's what theologians do. They deal off, and if they're primarily, Reformed, they really deal them on that pile, and these they put over there, and they don't deal with those. They just put them on a pile. And if they're Wesleyan and Arminian, they really deal those on the pile, and they put all those hard-to-understand Calvinistic ones over here. And that's what the controversy has been. So we go from the Roman Catholic Church, they get worse and worse and worse away from the Lord. We get to the Reformation Church of, all the great reformers, Luther and Calvin and Zwingli and all those people. Now look what we have. We have, you notice above the box, Roman Catholicism is works. What's the problem of Reformation theology? It's called drift. Now watch, when I taught systematic theology, I used to love to do this. This is the Bible. These are conclusions from the Bible. So we've got all these verses, and we make conclusions. Those are called doctrines. Bible, conclusions. This is theological drift. I have all of these doctrines. I go over here, and I find this doctrine, and I make a conclusion. What have I just done? Well, you can't see it, but here's the Bible. Every doctrine is tied to the Bible. But when you're a doctrine in the Bible and you tie to something, see, all these doctrines become doctrines that are no longer tied to the Bible. So let's go back to Wayne Grudem, the systematic. I always point this out. I say, whenever he gets into some parts of theology, you can go 6 to 8 pages and not find a single verse. Why? Because everything he's saying in Reformed theology is logically true. It's a conclusion of a conclusion, but it's not tied to the Bible. So what I say is it's logical, but it's not biblical. And that's where you get to the 5 points of Calvinism. But I'm not teaching theology. Then we got to the evangelical church, and what did they add that was a problem? Tradition. They started saying, hey, if you walk down the aisle, you're a Christian. If you pray this prayer after me, you're a Christian. Just like the Reformation Church made all these conclusions from conclusions, and just like the Roman Church added beads and candles and penance and oil and all the stuff they add, the evangelical church, of course, added their traditions. And then we've got the renewal charismatic people, and they've got all this, people, spirit slaying me, and God told me, and now you don't know what's the Bible and what God told you. And did what God tell you, is it equal with the Bible? And you have all these signs and wonders. So that's just Satan's method, the Catholic part.